Sunglow doesn't seem like an iconic Osu song, but somehow across most of the eras in Osu history, Sunglow appeared over and over again, not as a map everyone played, but as a map that broke barriers for the best of the best. This is the story of how a single map ushered in new eras in Osu. Let's rewind to 2017. A brand new map named Sunglow was ranked, mapped by Sharures, and nobody really batted an eye. Without any mods, it was pretty easy to gain performance points for the average player. But with double time, no way. It was thought to be impossible to full combo with that mod. That's what the community thought. Even Rafis, arguably the best double time player at the time, could only come close. But Rafis did prove that there was a possibility. All it needs was just one player to break that barrier. And that player was Mathi, an up-and-coming player who was underestimated by many. One who was shunned and disregarded as just another player who farms. But all it took was one play, one run that would change history, and cement Mathi's legacy as someone who should not be underestimated. Mathi had done it. He had achieved the impossible. At the time, the score was the second highest ranked score in the game. It was worth 848 PP. This and a couple of other scores propelled him towards the top, becoming number 1 and defeating Rafis, who held the number 1 spot for a couple months, giving way to a new era where 5 players basically took turns in achieving the number 1 spot. His score on Sunglow is a constant reminder of his meteoric rise, especially since it was an unexpected one. Only 1 month earlier, people thought that no one would beat Rafis for a long while. But here was Mathi, breaking through the glass and defining the new age. His score would remain at the top of Sunglow's leaderboards for a long time, waiting for the one player who could do better. But it would take a while, and it would need a player who was willing to go above and beyond. Eventually, it did find a player. It's 2019 now, and a top player named Vaxei just came back from a long break. Vaxei was already well known around the Osu community. For a time, he was the second highest ranked player in 2017. But he took a break, and everyone was unsure if he would return. But return he did, and with a bang. And of course, one of the maps he touched was Sunglow, which had laid dormant ever since Mathi's FC. Until now. Vaxei didn't just beat Sunglow, he destroyed it. His run was far ahead of Mathi's run. It was a whole percentage better, and this score remained number 1 on the leaderboards until Tim Kackner had beaten Vaxei but with lesser accuracy. This score still remains as number 1 through the laser scoring system though, even after more than 6 years. Along with Sunglow, Vaxei played other maps with high value, most infamously getting the first 1000 PP play in the game with Tsukinami, and taking the number 1 spot for himself, making sure the era of instability with the number 1 spot came to an end, as he himself won the United States ranking civil war and extended his lead to make sure no one else would catch him. But someone did, in a short span of time in fact. It only took 3 months for Vaxei to be defeated in the rankings, but not with this map set, and he was certainly not a player that anyone had expected at the time. Enter WhiteCat, a player who was falsely banned for cheating. His unban sparked a massive motivation spike for him, and he quickly climbed the rankings. Eventually, he overtook Vaxei for the number 1 spot, only after just 2 weeks of being unbanned. Fast forward to 2020, a new Sunglow map set was ranked. It was mapped by Only Biscuit, and this time people were paying attention, especially since it was very much possible for an FC during the WhiteCat era. Andros, a Swedish player, proved it was possible and got very close to the finish line. However, WhiteCat casually said one day, "Let's FC Sunglow." And after some attempts, this happened.
Today's joke day, I guess. Already choked 2 1Ks. But those days happens, guys. I just have to accept it. Just kidding, I won't accept it. FC is coming.
WhiteCat couldn't accept giving up, a true testament to his incredible mindset. It only took a few attempts to actually achieve what was truly an unbeatable 99.83% hidden double time FC on Sunglow, one that was worth 1038 PP, further defining the era of WhiteCat, who had been at the top for nearly a year at that point. Only legendary player Cookie Z had this level of dominance at the time. It really just seemed that WhiteCat could get any score he wanted, and it still wouldn't be sniped, and that he really was going to stay number 1 for a long time. That is, until the sudden appearance of the current number 1 player Nosu, Mrekk. Mrekk seemed to come out of nowhere. He had such fast improvement, and he had climbed all the way up the rankings, quickly overtaking WhiteCat on April 8, 2021, despite it being thought of as impossible to take over WhiteCat in such a short amount of time. One of the scores he set to overtake WhiteCat was his Sunglow DTFC. Actually, he's at 2 DTFCs on Sunglow, one in 2020 and one in 2021, with much better accuracy. But despite the accuracy being considered very impressive, it was still not enough to snipe WhiteCat on the map. So, Mrekk decided to do what was considered impossible at the time: add Hard Rock to DT. And somehow, he pulled it off. In this once-in-a-lifetime score, Mrekk was able to hit the patterns all the way to the ending, only missing at the final few jumps, ending WhiteCat's reign at the top of Sunglow's leaderboards. But something nagged at him. 1196 PP was not enough. Mrekk wanted 1200, and he wanted it bad. Against all odds, he did it again, this time much better. 1255 PP. It was his first ever 1200 PP score. Mrekk had done it. He had cemented himself in the Hall of Legends. It was also only 3 PP away from the PP record, directly mirroring what Mathi had done years prior, when he himself was only 2 PP away with his Sunglow play. However, this score did eventually become the PP record after a rework that would nerf the previous world record and bring Mrekk's play to the top. This score, along with others, made one thing clear: this was Mrekk's era, and nothing was stopping him. A testament that has remained true as he is still number 1 on the leaderboards. That's not where Sunglow's story ends, however. WhiteCat's DTFC remains unsniped in the DT leaderboards. Ryoshi and Milk Teaism came close, but still couldn't get it. There are also other Sunglows ranked, 2 from 2018, and 4 from 2024 and 25. None of these had the same notoriety as Only Biscuit and Sharu's Sunglows have. Even Only Biscuit's Sunglow has a reputation for being most top players' top play at one point. Here's a full list actually, it might be missing some people, but you get the point, that's a lot. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Sunglow by the way, consider liking the video and subscribing, it helps the channel and there's just a lot of stories that I have left to tell. So why Sunglow? At first I chose Sunglow because of the song. Yamajet's wonderful composition, Hiyura Masako's stunning vocals, and the meaning of the song were genuinely beautiful. Sunglow is a song about uncertainty, change, and moving forward even when the road ahead is unclear. And in a strange way, that message mirrors Osu's history in 2018. Massive shifts don't happen too often in this game. But when this song was first mapped, we were at a crossroads as the #1 spot was changing hands more frequently than ever before. Reigns from long before were ending, and new players were about to take the helm. Sunglow wasn't just another map, but it was a map that kept reappearing time and time again, especially when the game was about to change. Sunglow was never the most played map. It never had the legacy as maps like Blue Zenith and Freedom Dive had. But across nearly every era in Osu, when the limits of what was possible began to change, Sunglow was there. Maybe that's what makes a map iconic. Not how many people play it, but how often it forced the best of the best to rethink and rewrite what they are capable of. And maybe that's why Sunglow keeps coming back. Because just like the song puts it, the ones who will write the continuation of this story set in motion will be none other than you guys. Thank you so much for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.